The battlefield training arena was alive with the sounds of clashing weapons and the roar of warriors. The Drakari, a race of powerful reptilian aliens, were known for their brutal combat skills and unmatched physical strength. Their warriors trained from childhood, believing that only the strongest deserved respect. Among them stood Karish, a young but fearsome Drakari warrior. His body was covered in dark blue scales, and his golden eyes burned with confidence. Today, he had come to test himself against a new kind of opponent, a human. Standing across from him was Commander Nathan Cole, a human soldier in heavy armor. His suit was thick, reinforced with advanced Terran technology, and powered by an exoskeleton that enhanced his movements. It made him look larger and stronger, but Karish was not impressed. Karish let out a low, rumbling laugh. "Is this what humans need to fight?" he mocked. "A metal shell to hide inside. Without it, you are weak." Nathan didn't react. He simply rolled his shoulders, adjusting his stance. His voice was calm but firm. "Are you done talking, or do you actually plan to fight?" The surrounding Drakari warriors laughed at Nathan's boldness. To them, it was amusing that a human, one of the physically weakest species in the galaxy, would act so confident. Karish's grin widened. He stepped forward, flexing his clawed hands, his muscles rippling under his scales. "Very well, human. Let's see if that metal cage can save you." The fight began. Karish lunged forward, his speed shocking for his size. He swung his massive fist, aiming straight for Nathan's helmet. But in a blur of motion, Nathan sidestepped and blocked the attack with his armored forearm. The force of the hit sent a loud metallic clang through the arena. Nathan countered with a precise punch, landing a blow against Karish's ribs. The impact was powerful, not enough to hurt Karish seriously, but enough to surprise him. Karish narrowed his eyes. "Not bad, human." Nathan remained focused. He didn't respond with words, only movement. He dodged the next attack and struck again, this time hitting Karish's shoulder joint, forcing him to step back. The Drakari warriors watching the fight started to murmur. They had expected an easy victory for Karish, but this human was holding his own. Karish gritted his teeth. He wasn't just fighting a human. He was fighting a trained warrior, but in his mind, one thing was still certain. This human was only strong because of his armor. With renewed determination, Karish smirked and said, "Take off your metal shell, human. Let's see if you can still stand without it." Nathan finally stopped moving. His lips curled into a knowing smile. "All right," he said, reaching for the locks on his armor. "Let's see what you think after this." To be continued. The arena fell silent as Nathan reached for the locks on his armor. The metal plates hissed, releasing steam as he slowly disengaged the power suit. Karish crossed his arms, still smirking. "Without your shell, you are nothing," Karish said, his voice filled with confidence. The Drakari warriors around them laughed, waiting to see the human's weakness. But the laughter stopped the moment Nathan stepped forward. Without his armor, Nathan was not the fragile creature they expected. His muscular frame was covered in battle scars, each one a reminder of past fights. His arms were thick and strong, his stance steady like a mountain. He looked nothing like the weaklings the Drakari had imagined humans to be. Karish's smirk faded slightly, but he quickly covered it with a chuckle. "Amph, you look stronger than I thought. But strength is not about looks, human." Nathan rolled his shoulders, loosening up. "Then come find out," he said. Karish's golden eyes gleamed with excitement. He wanted to crush this human's confidence. He lunged forward, swinging a powerful fist straight at Nathan's chest. Nathan didn't dodge. Instead, he caught Karish's fist in his bare hand. A loud crack echoed through the arena as flesh met scales. Karish's eyes widened in shock. The human had stopped his attack. He could feel the iron grip around his knuckles, unyielding and firm. The Drakari warriors gasped. This wasn't possible. The human, catching a Drakari's punch. Nathan's grip tightened, and Karish felt a sharp pain in his wrist. With a swift movement, Nathan twisted Karish's arm, forcing the alien warrior to stumble forward. For the first time, Karish lost balance. Nathan let go and took a step back. "Not bad for a weakling, huh?" he said casually. Karish growled, rubbing his wrist. His pride burned inside him. But now, there was something else, too: uncertainty. This human was strong. But Karish refused to accept it. He shook off the doubt and charged again, this time aiming for Nathan's legs, hoping to knock him down. Nathan sidestepped effortlessly and struck a precise punch to Karish's ribs. The force of the hit made the Drakari warrior grunt in pain. The human wasn't just strong, he was fast and accurate. The watching warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Karish was struggling. Karish breathed heavily, staring at Nathan, who stood calm and focused, barely out of breath. How was this happening? Nathan smirked. "Still think humans are weak." Karish clenched his fists. His confidence had turned into determination. If this human was truly strong, then he would prove who the better warrior was. The real fight had just begun. Karish clenched his fists. His pride was wounded, but his warrior spirit burned stronger. No human could be stronger than a Drakari. The arena was silent, the other Drakari watching closely. They had expected Karish to crush the human easily, but Nathan stood calm and steady, without even a hint of fear. Karish snarled and lunged forward with all his strength. This time, he wouldn't hold back. Nathan saw it coming. He prepared to dodge, but Karish was faster than before. With a powerful swing, Karish's fist crashed into Nathan's chest. The impact echoed through the arena like a thunderclap. Nathan was sent flying back, rolling across the dirt. A cloud of dust rose around him as he skidded to a stop. Karish grinned, baring his sharp teeth. "Now you see, human. Without your armor, you are weak." The Drakari warriors roared in approval, but their cheers quickly faded when Nathan stood up. His chest burned from the hit, but his eyes were still sharp. He wiped the dust off his face and cracked his neck. "That all you got?" Nathan asked, smirking. Karish's grin disappeared. Nathan charged forward this time. He ducked under Karish's next punch and delivered a powerful uppercut to the alien's jaw. Karish stumbled backward, his vision spinning for a moment. The human had actually managed to hit him hard enough to daze him. The other Drakari warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Karish shook his head, regaining his focus. His pride would not let him lose. With a roar, he grabbed Nathan by the waist and lifted him off the ground, using his raw strength to throw him across the arena. Nathan slammed into the dirt again, rolling before stopping on his back. He coughed, the impact forcing the air from his lungs. Karish snorted. "You cannot defeat me, human. My strength is far greater than yours." Nathan slowly sat up, breathing heavily. His muscles ached, but his eyes never wavered. "Maybe," Nathan admitted, rolling his shoulders. "But strength isn't everything." Karish frowned. "What do you mean?" Nathan stood up and smirked. "You'll see." The fight was far from over. Karish stared at Nathan, confused and frustrated. The human should have stayed down. The force of his attacks was enough to break bones, yet Nathan kept getting up. The other Drakari warriors were silent now, watching with uneasy expressions. They had expected Karish to crush the human quickly, but Nathan was still standing. Nathan rolled his shoulders, shaking off the pain. His ribs ached, and his arms felt heavy, but his mind was clear. He had faced worse than this before. "You hit hard," Nathan admitted, cracking his neck. "But you rely too much on strength." Karish growled. "Strength is everything." Nathan smirked. "Is it?" He shifted his stance, raising his fists. He didn't need brute force to win. He had speed, strategy, and endurance. Karish snarled and charged again. He swung a powerful clawed fist, aiming to knock Nathan out for good. Nathan dodged at the last second. Karish's fist slammed into the ground, cracking the stone beneath. He was strong, too strong, but strength alone wouldn't win this fight. Nathan countered. He moved fast, delivering a sharp elbow strike to Karish's side. Karish grunted and spun, trying to grab Nathan, but the human was too quick. He ducked under Karish's arms and struck again, landing 2 clean punches to Karish's ribs. Karish stumbled back, his eyes wide. The Drakari warriors watching stiffened. Their strongest young warrior was struggling against a human, without armor, without weapons. Nathan smirked. See, strength alone isn't enough. Karish gritted his teeth. His pride burned inside him. He had never faced an opponent like this before. With a deep breath, Karish stepped back and raised his claws. His golden eyes narrowed. Fine, human. You have skill, but I will not lose. Nathan wiped a trickle of blood from his lip. Neither will I. The fight was about to enter its final stage. The next moves would decide who was truly the better warrior. Karish breathed heavily, his chest rising and falling as he stared at Nathan. How? How was this human still standing? How was he still fighting? Nathan, on the other hand, looked calm. His body was bruised, his muscles ached, but his eyes showed no fear. Karish clenched his fists. His pride screamed at him. He had never struggled this much against an opponent. This was not how things were supposed to go. The Drakari warriors watching had stopped laughing. Some of them even looked concerned. Nathan smirked. What's wrong? He asked. Not as easy as you thought. Karish growled and charged again, moving faster than before. He wasn't just attacking now. He was trying to overwhelm Nathan. One final, crushing blow. Nathan saw it. He didn't run. He didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped forward. Karish swung his clawed fist, aiming for Nathan's face. But at the last second, Nathan ducked under it and slammed his fist right into Karish's ribs. Karish felt the impact deep in his bones. Nathan didn't stop. Another punch, then another. Precise, powerful, relentless. Karish tried to counter, but Nathan sidestepped and landed a final devastating uppercut to his jaw. Karish staggered back, his vision blurred. His ears rang. For the first time in his life, he fell to one knee. The arena went dead silent. Nathan stood over him, breathing hard, his knuckles bruised. He wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't mocking. He simply offered a hand. Karish looked up, confused. Why? Why wasn't the human finishing him? Why was he offering to help him up? Nathan's voice was steady. Strength isn't just about power. It's about control. It's about knowing when to fight and when to stop. Karish hesitated. He had been taught that warriors should never show weakness. But as he looked at Nathan, a human who had fought him without armor, without fear, and now without hate, he felt something strange. Respect. Slowly, he took Nathan's hand. The Drakari warriors watching let out a gasp. Their strongest young warrior, the pride of their people, had just acknowledged a human. As Nathan helped Karish to his feet, the Drakari finally understood. This human was not weak. And Karish. He had just met an opponent truly worthy of being called a warrior. Karish stood on his feet, his body aching, his pride wounded. He had never been knocked down before. Never had he fought an opponent who challenged him like this. Nathan stood in front of him, calm and steady, his breathing controlled. His fists were bruised, his muscles sore, but his will remained unshaken. The Drakari warriors watching whispered among themselves. They had expected a quick, humiliating defeat for the human, but now they saw something different. Karish wiped the blood from his lip and grinned. His golden eyes burned with something new. Excitement. You are not weak, human, he admitted. You fight like a true warrior. Nathan smirked. Took you long enough to figure that out. Karish laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. Then let's see who truly stands at the end. Without warning, he attacked again, faster, sharper, more precise. This was no longer about proving his strength. This was about fighting with respect. Nathan met him head-on. Fists clashed. Blows were exchanged. Nathan ducked, dodged, countered. Karesh blocked, struck, and adapted. For the first time, they were equals. The Drakari warriors, once mocking, now watched in awe. The fight was no longer about who was stronger. It was about who could push further, who could endure more, who had the will to rise every time they fell. And Nathan did. Despite the pain, despite Karesh's brute force, Nathan refused to give in. His attacks never slowed. His focus never wavered. And Karesh, he was loving every second of it. Their final exchange was brutal. Nathan landed a heavy punch to Karesh's jaw. Karesh retaliated with a powerful strike to Nathan's ribs. Both warriors staggered back. Both were breathing heavily. Both grinned. Nathan chuckled, wiping sweat from his forehead. Still think I needed my armor. Karesh let out a low chuckle. No, you fight like a Drakari. You fight like a warrior. For the first time in history, a Drakari had acknowledged a human as an equal. The warriors in the crowd roared in approval. This was not a battle of dominance. This was the beginning of respect. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something greater. Karesh rubbed his jaw, a grin creeping back onto his face. The pain in his ribs and the sting in his knuckles were nothing compared to the thrill of the fight. For the first time, he faced someone who wasn't just an opponent, but a true challenger. Nathan, meanwhile, was steadying his breathing. Every muscle in his body ached, but he wasn't about to let that stop him. He had fought his way through countless battles before this, and this one wasn't going to break him. The Drakari warriors surrounding the arena were no longer jeering. Instead, they were silent, focused, watching with newfound respect. Even Karesh's mentor, the seasoned warrior Zarvok, stood in the back, arms crossed, his expression no longer mocking but contemplative. Karesh took a step forward, his golden eyes gleaming. You've surprised me, human. I never expected you to be this strong. But I can see now, it's not just physical strength. You have something more. Nathan raised an eyebrow, smirking. What's that? My good looks. Karesh barked out a laugh, a deep rumble that echoed in the air. No, your will, your spirit. I hit you harder than I've ever hit anyone, and you still stand. You're not fighting just to win, are you? You're fighting to prove something. To yourself, maybe. To everyone. Nathan's smile faded slightly. He hadn't thought about it that way. But Karesh's words rang true. He fought to survive, to endure, and to show that humans were more than the galaxy gave them credit for. Maybe I am, Nathan admitted, but that's why I'm still here, and why I'm not giving up. Not now, not ever. Karesh nodded, then neither will I. They clashed again, but this time, it wasn't a contest of pride or arrogance. It was something purer, a true test of skill and determination. Karesh's blows were faster now, more precise. He no longer tried to overpower Nathan with sheer force. Instead, he adapted, using calculated strikes and quick footwork. But Nathan wasn't the same fighter who stepped into the arena. He had studied Karesh's moves, found the patterns, and now he countered with speed and strategy. He ducked under a powerful swing and landed a sharp jab to Karesh's side. He stepped back just in time to avoid a sweeping kick, then drove forward with a feint, causing Karesh to block the wrong side. The crowd gasped when Nathan landed a solid punch to Karesh's solar plexus, forcing the Drakari warrior to stumble. Karesh's eyes widened, not in fear, but in respect. For the first time, Nathan had taken the upper hand. Karesh didn't back down. He surged forward with renewed energy, the two warriors exchanging a rapid flurry of blows. But Nathan wasn't just keeping up. He was pushing Karesh harder than anyone ever had. The Drakari warriors began to murmur amongst themselves. This human, without his armor, was standing toe-to-toe with one of their strongest, and Karish was enjoying every moment of it. The crowd watched in stunned silence. The once mocking jeers were long gone, replaced by the occasional gasp and whispered disbelief. Nathan and Karish stood at the center of the arena, both breathing heavily. Sweat dripped from Nathan's brow, his bruises aching with every movement, but his stance never faltered. Across from him, Karish's golden eyes flickered with a mix of pride and frustration. His chest heaved, his muscles burned, and his pride, unshakable until now, was starting to crack. Karish had never fought so hard, never had an opponent who matched him blow for blow, who pushed him to the edge of his limits. This human was not supposed to be his equal. Yet here he was, standing tall and unyielding. Nathan wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, tasting blood. "What's the matter, Karish? You look tired." Karish narrowed his eyes, his scaled lips curling into a smile that held no bitterness. "You fight well, human. Better than I expected. But this isn't over." With a loud roar, Karish surged forward again. His powerful legs launched him toward Nathan like a living missile. He swung with everything he had, a punch meant to end the fight once and for all. But Nathan didn't back down. Instead, he stepped inside Karish's reach. At the last moment, he ducked under the blow and delivered a sharp, brutal strike to Karish's exposed ribs. The impact echoed across the arena. Karish gasped, staggering sideways, his balance faltering. Nathan didn't give him a chance to recover. He followed with a quick, precise jab to Karish's jaw, then another powerful hook to his shoulder. Karish fell to one knee. The crowd gasped. Karish, their strongest young warrior, the one they had cheered for, was now kneeling before a human. Nathan stepped back, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He didn't move to attack again. Instead, he stood still, waiting, watching. His expression wasn't smug or mocking. It was calm, almost respectful. Karish looked up, his vision blurry but his pride still intact. He met Nathan's gaze and saw no hatred, no ridicule, just a warrior who had fought with everything he had and respected the strength of his opponent. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, Karish did something no one in the crowd expected. He placed his fist over his chest, the Drakari gesture of honor. Nathan gave a small nod, understanding the meaning even if the gesture was foreign. He extended his hand. Karish hesitated, then reached out and grasped it. Nathan helped him to his feet. The crowd, at first silent, erupted into cheers, not for Karish alone, but for both warriors. This was no longer about one species dominating the other. It was about respect. Karish, though defeated, felt no shame. "You are not weak, human. You have proven that today." Nathan smirked, wiping the sweat from his brow. "And you're not so bad yourself." As the roar of the crowd grew louder, Nathan stood beside Karish, still catching his breath. The human's knuckles throbbed, his ribs ached, and his legs felt heavy, but he was standing tall. Karish, on the other hand, had never been more bruised, and never felt more alive. Every muscle burned, every strike from Nathan still fresh in his body's memory, and yet there was no resentment, only respect. Karish wiped the blood from his lip and grinned, showing sharp teeth that glinted in the arena's light. He turned to face Nathan, his golden eyes narrowing with something new. Acceptance. "You are not like the others," Karish said. His voice was steady, free from the mocking tone it once carried. "I thought humans were weaklings who hid behind machines and technology. But now I see, your strength is more than skin deep." Nathan raised an eyebrow, a small smirk forming on his face. "Took you long enough to figure that out." Karish chuckled, a deep rumble that echoed around them. It was the kind of laugh shared by warriors who had tested each other and come out stronger. The crowd, filled with Drakari warriors, stood in stunned silence. They had never witnessed a fight like this, More importantly, they had never seen one of their own warriors acknowledge a human as an equal. "You have earned my respect," Karish continued, placing a clawed hand over his chest, a gesture that the Drakari only used to honor those they deemed worthy, "and the respect of my people. You fought without armor, without tricks, and yet you stood against me. For that, I bow to you, human." The arena gasped. Karish, the young warrior who was destined to lead one day, had just publicly admitted that he had met his match. It was an act that demanded courage and humility. And for Karish, it was the right thing to do. Nathan nodded, his smirk fading into a more serious expression. "You fought well too, Karish. Tougher than anyone I've ever faced." Karish stepped closer, extending a large, clawed hand. "A true warrior's battle ends in respect. Will you accept this, Nathan Cole, human soldier?" Nathan looked at the hand for a moment, then clasped it firmly. The crowd erupted into cheers, not just for Karish, but for Nathan too. The Drakari warriors began stomping their feet, a tradition among their people to honor those who had fought valiantly. Nathan, a human, was now included in their tradition, a mark of something bigger than a single fight. Karish leaned closer, his voice low but steady. "The galaxy will know your name, Nathan. And one day we will fight again, not as enemies, but as allies." Nathan smiled, looking forward to it. With that, the two warriors stood side by side, their shared battle having changed not just their view of each other, but the view of everyone around them. Nathan and Karish stepped out of the arena together. Around them, Drakari warriors stomped their feet in unison, a thunderous applause that echoed across the stone walls. The human had earned their respect, and Karish's acknowledgement made it official. As the two walked, Karish spoke in a low voice. "I was wrong about humans," he admitted. "You fight with more than just strength. You fight with heart, determination. I never thought I'd see such spirit from your kind." Nathan glanced at him, his lips quirking into a faint smile. "And I never thought I'd hear that from a Drakari." Karish gave a short laugh. It wasn't mocking this time. It was genuine. "You've changed more than my mind today, human. My people, they've seen what you can do, what your kind can do." Nathan's smile faded into something more thoughtful. "And what about your people? Do you think this will last? That they'll keep respecting us?" Karish paused, considering the question. His golden eyes looked out over the training grounds, where Drakari soldiers were already talking in hushed tones. Many still looked Nathan's way, their expressions no longer sneering but curious, some even impressed. "Respect is earned, not given," Karish said. "You've earned it today. If you keep showing this strength, this resilience, my people will never forget." Nathan nodded. "I didn't come here to make enemies. Maybe we can fight together next time, instead of against each other." Karish turned to him, a grin spreading across his face. "I'd like that, human. And who knows, maybe one day you'll teach us a few of your tricks." Nathan chuckled, shaking his head. "Sure, if you're ready to admit humans might have something to offer." Karish's grin widened. "I think we just did." They continued walking, and as they did, the tension that had existed between them earlier seemed to fade. What remained was a sense of camaraderie, a bond forged in battle. They weren't just two warriors anymore. They were two individuals who understood each other's strength, both physical and inner. When they reached the edge of the training grounds, Karish stopped. He extended his hand, clawed and still bruised from their fight. "Until next time, Nathan. May we meet as allies, not opponents." Nathan reached out, his grip firm. "Until next time." As they parted ways, the crowd of Drakari warriors gave Nathan one last round of stomping applause. They weren't just honoring the fight. They were honoring him. The human had changed something that day. It wasn't just a single battle. It was the first step toward something greater, a mutual respect that could one day grow into a true alliance. Nathan glanced over his shoulder as Karish disappeared into the crowd. His body still ached, but he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope.